Hello, my name is Katie Groves, and this is part 25 in my series about deprogramming from trauma-based mind control. If you've not done so already, I ask that you please watch the first 2 parts of this series linked in the description below for disclaimers and safety measures you can take while watching these videos. In this video, I'm going to talk about some of the ways that I was programmed to believe that I'm evil and to take on false responsibility for crimes I was forced to commit under programming and crimes that my abusers committed against others, including myself. And this video is going to be a precursor to another video I will make about how I have been able to deprogram these things in myself. But I feel like before I can talk about that, I must first speak a bit extensively about how those beliefs were programmed in me. This is something that I witnessed being done to virtually everyone in the SRA cult in which I was raised and in government mind control. So I think this is very pertinent and require more information being shared. It's a very hard video to make. I'm going to outline some ways in which I was programmed to believe that I'm evil. This condition started incredibly young, and it revolved around a lot of forced perpetration and also flipping of my sense of self and responsibility with my abusers. And by that I mean that after I was abused by an abuser, the abuser would shame me for having abused them. Or even during the abuse, the abuser would cry out, scream, and say things while they were hurting me to make me think that I was the one hurting them. And this was done to me when I was extremely young, a toddler even. So this was before my sense of self had barely begun to individuate from my abusers, from my parents, namely, but also from the other adults around me. And of course I had individuated to some small degree, but this was being disrupted and manipulated at every turn. So the degree to which I had already separated from them emotionally was small, and it was very stunted, the whole process, by this kind of abuse. That was a big part of making me believe I was evil. The abuse in this instance was often sexual abuse and very devastating on my psyche. Another form of abuse, like I said, was the forced perpetration. And in this case, I was often forced to kill, torture, sexually abuse, do myriad horrible things to another child, but those are the main things. And then I was switched out of the dissociative parts that had been used to do this and switched into other parts who were unaware that this had happened. These parts were often brought into consciousness right after said atrocity had been forced to commit. And I would come to suddenly aware that I had supposedly done this, being shamed, screamed at. It was made to be as traumatic as possible. So I'd wake up in a crime scene, essentially, looking quote-unquote guilty. Or I would be recorded being forced to commit a crime that I had been programmed to commit. And then other parts would be brought out and shown the recordings by the abusers. The abusers would say, "See, you did this. How can you say you did not do this? Look at you. You are doing this." And of course I would be terrified. I would not recall doing anything of that nature. And then I would be told that I was sick, that I was evil, that I was a psychopath, and then parts were conditioned to believe that we were in a behavioral modification program for highly deranged sociopathic children. And I was told that I was part of an experimental program led by world-renowned psychologists and doctors designed to condition children who were extraordinarily violent so that they were no longer so violent. And so I had parts of me that actually believed that I was being programmed because I was evil. That I had been caught committing violent crimes as a small child by my parents, who out of desperation enlisted these world-renowned psychologists and doctors to recondition me, i.e. Monarch program me, so that I would, quote, get well. And these were small child parts. I was maybe 3 or 4 years old when this was being explained to me. And I was pretty capable of understanding these concepts even at that age. I was very precocious. But they would explain it to me in terms I could understand. And as I got older, they continued to condition parts in these ways and to speak to them more in depth about what all this was and what this supposedly meant. So that was a big thing. Another big thing was group shaming. I talked about being screamed at, being shamed. They would do ritual shaming in groups of large numbers of adults and children who would ritually abuse me, scream at me, yell at me, say terrible things, and make me believe that I was evil. There was overt satanic ritual abuse involved in this. When I was 13 years old, I was inducted as a quote-unquote daughter of Satan. And the entire time I was being told that were I ever to tell anyone in the outside world what was happening to me, they would not believe that I was not responsible for what was happening just because I was a child, that I would be held responsible. They even had people dressed as cops and judges and sometimes even actual members of law enforcement and the judicial system who they would prove to me were real members of those systems come in and fake interrogations and even fake court trials in which I was made to believe that I had been found guilty of committing these crimes. None of this was my fault. None of this I chose. And in recalling memories, full memories of these abuses, I can show myself that these things were staged, that I was under threat of death and torture, and even when I refused to comply under those threats, I was forced through chemical means and other means in the programming. That I was actually willing to die rather than do these things to people, and wasn't even allowed that choice. So, well, I know now that I'm not evil, and I did not do these things. Tremendous efforts were gone to, and there are many other programming techniques used as well to make me believe that I am evil. Even just the use of tapes being played in my head over and over and over again, made to drill these affirmations into my head that I am evil, were tremendously effective when coupled with drugs and torture. So, I'm getting to the end of my video. I can't speak more than 10 minutes on this phone. I hope that this was helpful, not too overwhelming for people. In my next video, I'm going to talk about the ways that I have been able to deprogram myself around these beliefs and to heal the traumas that created them. Thank you.